Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're looking at my draft deck from the new Caverns of Ixalan set. This is the deck I built, so I'll just kind of go through it. So first, we have the Autoclon Landmark. Sorry, my stand's shaking a bit. We have the Autoclon Landmark, which scries 2 and does something on the back, but I never use that during the game, so it doesn't really matter. Then we have Buried Treasure. I feel like this card's pretty underrated. It's 2 mana for a treasure token, essentially. But usually, you just get to 4 mana, crack this, and then you spend that extra mana to activate its ability and discover 5 and just hit something big. And as you can see, this deck has nothing with mana cost greater than 4. Which is important, you'll see soon. But yeah, so Discover 5 is basically just Discover 4 in this deck. So then we have Treasure Map, which I believe was the first card I pulled. This Scry one is pretty good, helps you set up your next couple draws, and then afterwards it just draws you cards or ramps you, which is incredibly powerful. Then we have Hermetic Nautilus. This card's a solid blocker and attacker. That vigilance is huge, and it just makes it all around a pretty powerful card. And this is great to get some discover effects into, just as a blocker just out of nowhere. Then, as you can see, I have 3 copies of Sage of Days. It's 3 mana. You look at the top 3, and then you put 1 back on top, rest in yard. This deck has basically no descend synergies, but you'd be surprised at how effective it turns out to be, just setting up your next draws like that. And again, with Discover, you can basically put the best card you need on top. And so yeah, I have 3 of these. They're 3/2s, which is, pretty powerful, and usually is better than what your opponents can muster. Then I have a Waterwind Scout. When it enters, I make a map, and it's just a flying 2/2. And then basically, yeah, it makes a map. You can crack the map, whatever. This is great because it just gets over people's cards, and if they also have flyers, then usually you can just power out against those. All right, then I have an Atali's Favor. I sided this in for my last match. It just discovers 3, gives +1/+1 and trample. It's okay, not great. I really was just kind of desperate against my opponent because I actually lost my last match. But otherwise than that, I got second place. So I think you'll see why it's interesting that this deck got second place. So yeah, Discover 3 is pretty good. Then we have 2 copies of Capricati Sunborn. Whenever it attacks, you may tap up to 2 untapped artifacts and or creatures. If you do, Discover 3. And it's just a 4 mana 4/4 mostly in my deck. And again, if I'm Discover 4, if I cast something with Discover 4, if I hit this, it's big value, and that Discover 3 can hit basically everything else in my deck. So yeah, this is kind of the top end. And yeah, it's insane the amount of card advantage you can get off that. All right, then we have my removal. I had 8 pieces of removal by the end. So we have Brackish Blunder, which is usually just a 2 mana bounce spell. I didn't get that map very often. Then we have Rumbling Rock Slide, which is pretty great for taking care of larger creatures late game. And my deck does very good late game. And so yeah, Sorcery Speed, taking out stuff is pretty good. Deathcap Marionette, not technically removal, but that Death Touch is a huge threat. And that Mill can be good, but my deck doesn't care about it, so the Death Touch is what I'm after. Ray of Ruin, pretty mediocre, pretty overcosted. I ran it just because I needed more slots, and so I had it. I dropped a card. All right, then our next 4 removal spells is Unlucky Drop. This was pretty solid since it gums up your opponent's next draw or just takes care of a threat. Instant speed, 4 mana. It's solid. Then you have Join the Dead. This is probably the best removal spell in the set that I have seen. Since 3 mana instant speed, -5/-5 usually gets anything in the set. And on the off chance that something is larger than that, you easily get the -10/-10 late game. Then I have Petrify, which is, again, just solid for taking out an attacker or stopping abilities. I played this on one guy's artifact, so he couldn't craft with it to make a 6/6, so it's huge. Deadweight, solid removal. This is, I would say, pretty close to Join the Dead, except it's sorcery speed, so it's no Disfigure. But yeah, Deadweight's also huge. It gets you that Descend trigger if the creature dies. So yeah, -2/-2 for 1 mana is pretty solid. Now, as you probably noticed, this deck is 4 color. And a draft, that's pretty bold, but as you can see from the cards over here, there's a reason. So let's get rid of all the cards. Those aren't important. Let's get into the real meat of this deck. So, as you can see, 5 basics. This is a 42 card deck. Whatever, those are just to get our basics. So, the big value on this is it's a caves deck, which is how I got to be managed to run 4 colors. So we got a hidden courtyard, and then a Forgotten Monument, which is solid for mana fixing. This did help a lot, but these are the real MVPs. Captivating Caves. It fixes your mana as a filter land, and late game, it gets you a bunch of counters, gets you big threats. This card is insane, and I actually got a full play set of these during the draft, which was just huge value, and combined with the Scampering Surveyors and the Compass Gnomes, which get caves on top or onto the field tapped. It just, sets up everything you need. These are perfect, and those Discover lands are great if my deck's 4 or less, because I'll hit anything no matter what. But yeah, and then like 3/2s, 2/1s for 2 mana. Like these cards, you'd be surprised how good they are in a Caves deck, especially with Captivating Cave, because that's just huge value. Then we'll move on to the rest of the caves. So then we got a Volatile Fault. I didn't actually activate this the whole game. Nobody was really running non-basics. So generally this is just an untapped colorless land that synergized with other caves. And I had 2 copies of Volatile Fault. I had 1 Promising Vein. This was actually pretty useful for fixing my mana oftentimes, but sometimes it just stuck around, and that's fine. Then I had 2 copies of Hidden Cataract, which are huge because, again, you just get those extra Discovers and late game massive card advantage over your opponent. Then I had another 2 Hidden Courtyard, so 3 total. And yeah, again, these Discover lands, I feel like people underestimate them. Nobody in my pod was grabbing caves, and so I just went all into it. Now, the interesting thing is you can see so far I've had 0 payoffs for the caves other than the caves themselves. And here are my payoffs. So I have Bat Colony, which creates a 1/1 black bat for each mana from a cave spent to cast it. And then whenever you play a cave, you get a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. People definitely underestimate this. 3 flying 3/3s is huge, and these will just get bigger and bigger the more caves you have. And again, with Captivating Cave, you can easily turn those into 4/4 flyers if you play one of those. So that's huge. And that's my only payoff, actually. I didn't get any others during the draft. I did get kind of a payoff, which is Mischievous Pup, which can bounce my Bat Colony to recast it. And so I essentially had 2 Bat Colonies in the deck, which again, massive value, and a flash 3/1 is pretty good. But yeah, that's basically the whole deck. That got me 2nd place. A lot of people were surprised. It got the nickname the Caves and Cliffs update, which, yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Another big part of why this deck I feel like performs so well is if we can find the Forgotten Monument. So I only had 1 copy, which means fixing my mana is difficult, but I had 3 of these, which essentially equates to 4 copies of Forgotten Monument. And I think this card is probably overrated, honestly. It is powerful, but you eventually end up paying so much life. If you see Captivating Cave during a draft at your local game store, I would probably grab a couple, because there will be these will be in abundance early game, early on the draft, and then they go late, and so later on people will probably start taking these. Honestly though, I was able to grab these the entire time. So if you notice, not a lot of people are grabbing the caves after your first 3 picks. I would try to go into caves because it's some of the most fun I've had during drafts. Your opponents, they have your opponents have a blast playing against it. You have a blast playing it. Me and this one guy, we had a massive conversation about our decks and just how the caves deck seemed to overperform from what everybody anticipated. Going in 4 color was kind of a meme. But it turned out to be way more powerful than anybody expected. I basically had no green cards, so yeah, I think I didn't draft a single one. So yeah, no green in a caves deck. A lot of people were also surprised by that. But yeah, I guess that concludes the deck tech. I hope you enjoyed watching. I just thought the draft went well enough, and that playing showcasing how the draft went would be worth doing. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you like this kind of content where I do deck techs on maybe just decks I build or drafts I play. And yeah, that'll be it. See ya.